This will be a base equation that we will continue to look at. Now, what we should be able to do is by an inspection, is pull out these values from our equation. Once again, just as a reminder, the period is 360 divided by b, and the amplitude is absolute value of A. Vertical phase shift gives us prime axis. Horizontal phase shift gives us theta start. When you're dealing with sine, you're on the prime axis. We're going to deal with cosine. Cosine, you're in a Beaker Valley. That is everything that we have talked about so far. Well, one last thing I'm going to ask you to calculate. I'm going to ask you to calculate the y-intercept. And this goes back to the idea of slope and y-intercept. I'm going to want you to also find the y-intercept of your graph here. It's the value at which the graph crosses the y-axis. That's your y-intercept. And the value we know at this is a theta value is equal to 0. So you'll have to use your calculator to be able to calculate this. Well, if we look at our equation, what would be your amplitude? What would be the period? What would be the vertical and horizontal phase shift? So write down your amplitude, period, vertical, horizontal phase shift. Check your answer with somebody around you. Amplitude is going to be your absolute value of the coefficient of your sine or cosine. Period is equal to 360 divided by our b value. Vertical phase shift, the value out front. Horizontal phase shift is what's being subtracted from theta. Maya, what do you have for the amplitude? Period? 2 for the amplitude.
Oh wait, no, 3.
3 for the amplitude, period.
180.
180, taking 360, there's our B value, divided by 2, we have 180. Vertical phase shift, horizontal phase shift. Preston, what do we have for vertical and horizontal? Vertical phase shift and horizontal phase shift. Kyle, what do you have vertical, horizontal phase shift?
2 and negative 60.
Negative 60, because this is theta minus a negative 60. Here's my vertical phase shift. This is my horizontal phase shift. What's being subtracted? So I have a negative 60. Now the y-intercept, we need to substitute theta value equal to 0. So we have 0 plus 60, which I'm hoping you can say is 60. So you can clickety-clack into your calculator just as what we have here. 2 plus 3 sine. 2 times 60, close your parenthesis out and hit enter. 2 plus 3 sine 2 times 60, close your parenthesis out. Dad, what do you come up with?
What theta am I putting in?
How do you find your y-intercept? What value did you, well, how do we find our y-intercept? What did you just write down here? To find your y-intercept, what value of theta do you have to plug in? What did you write down?
Isn't it 0?
Yes. So we have 2 times 0 plus 60, which is 2 times 60.
120.
Yes. So you have to type in 2 plus 3 sine 120. And hit enter.
4.5.
4.5. All right. Taking a look at the graph. Now, looking at this graph, things that you should judge a little bit. I have an amplitude of 3 and a vertical phase shift of 2. So this graph is going to slide upwards, so I need to be a little bit more top heavy because I'm sliding it upwards. And those are two that you can do with respect to where do I put my theta and y. Now, the period is only 180 degrees. So I can make my numbers a little bit wider. I don't want to scrunch 90, 180, 270, 360. Why? Because that's going to be hard on my eyes. When the period is small, I can make my 90s a lot bigger. So I'm going to take 90 out to here, 180 out to here, 270 out to here. And that allows me negative 90 over to here. And I can divvy these up into thirds. If you wanted to, you can count out by 30s. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. That would be fine too. Once again, you will continue to acquire the ability to make a graph out. It will get better. See if I got your axis down. All right. Always the first thing. Prime axis, vertical phase shift. So you go to your vertical phase shift, draw on a prime axis. And I'll tell you right now, if you do not use straight edges and you try to freehand all this stuff, I will take points off. Theta prime. Second thing, we need to know a start value. We need to know where we start. That was our y-intercept before. But our start value here, you look at your horizontal phase shift and your trig function. Horizontal phase shift tells us your theta start value. So we'd start at negative 60. Sine tells us peaks and valleys of prime axis. Which one? Prime axis. So at negative 60, we're on the prime axis. Third thing we take a look at is the period 180. Every 180 degrees, I'll be at the exact same spot. So if I start at negative 60 and I go 180 degrees to my right, what theta value will we be at? 120. At 120, we'll be back on the prime axis. Now we play our games of halves. Halfway between negative 60 and 120. So add those two together, divide by 2. $30. Where are we at with our graph? Where are we at? No, not
Oh,
1.
on the.
On the prime axis again. Remember what a sine curve will do. Click, 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 climb the hill. Sine curve, we start on the neutral axis, click, 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 climb the hill, scream, ah! Down through, and then back up again. So we're at 30, we are here. Halfway between negative 60 and 30. Add them together. This is negative 30, divide by 2, negative 15. What's our y value going to be? Okay, we're at negative 15. What would the y value be? Sam, what do you think? You have to climb. You're going to have to scream. How far do we climb up?
2. Oh, 3. It's gonna be at -1.
Now we're going to climb upwards. We're climbing upwards. So we're at 2 and we're going to climb upwards 3, so we're going to be up at y?
5.
Up at 5. So negative 15 will be up at 5. Then halfway between 30 and 120, we have 75. Brooklyn, where will we be at now with our y value? Negative 1. We have to go to our valley. Now we throw in our y-intercept at 4.5. Here's our y-intercept at 4.5. It should nicely flow through that y-intercept. Here would be our graph. Find your amplitude period, vertical, horizontal phase shift, and y-intercept. Check your answer with somebody around you. Again, find your y-intercept, 0 is theta, theta is equal to 0. So we have 1/2 times 90, or 0.5 times 90. Close your parenthesis out. Watch yourself with your b value. Your b value is 1/2. So we have 360 divided by 1/2. Mia, what's your amplitude period? 720 is the period. What's the amplitude?
2.
Value 2. Vertical, horizontal phase shift. Will we have the vertical and horizontal phase shift? Lily? Vertical phase shift. Horizontal. Y-intercept. You got it? Anybody get y-intercept yet? 0.4. You go with that? 0.4. Just not yourself. So we're looking at our graph now. Okay, period 720. Okay, I have an amplitude appear 2, and vertical phase shift of -1. So I can be pretty much in the middle here. But the period now is 720. So when the period is bigger, I need to make my 90s a little bit smaller. Okay? So I'm going to count out by 90s, but I'm going to make them smaller. Okay, once again, when the period's big, 90s get smaller. When the period's small, 90s can get bigger. Or you can count out by 30s. Okay, first thing you draw in, prime axis. So draw on your prime axis with your vertical phase shift. Second thing, you go to your horizontal phase shift, your trig value, or your trig function, and you have to look at your amplitude here on where you start. So your theta start value is your horizontal phase shift. The cosine, start on the prime axis or peaks and valleys. If it's a peak, then I have to go to my amplitude. So -90. What y value are we at, Hannah? At -90? Trig function's cosine, peaks and valleys are prime axis. Okay, we'll be up at 1. Because we have to go up 2 from our prime axis. Okay? Third thing, take a look at this period. Tells us every degree, how many degrees we have to go to be at the exact same spot again. So if we're at -90 and we go out 720, we're at -90, we're at 720, we'll be at the exact same spot, 720 degrees from -90. So if I start at -90, go out 720 degrees, once again, the easiest way of taking this is just take the horizontal phase shift and add the period to it. So we have -90 plus 720. Alexa, where are we at? 630. We'll be at the exact same spot. Between 2 peaks, our gain's a half, we'll get a valley. So what's the halfway point between -90 and 630? We'll be at a valley. Again, you have to take a look at the amplitude. The valley is from the prime axis. So we have 630 plus -90 divided by 2. We'll be at a valley value. What's the theta value on that, Sam?
270.
270. What will be the y value? We have to go to a valley.
Yeah.
So we're at -1, we would go down to,
-2.
and that, we have an amplitude of 2, we're at -1 to begin with. You have to go down to
-3.
-3. So at 270, we're at -3. Then we have 2 more games of halves will be on the prime axis. So 2 more games of halves, halfway between -90 and 270. And 270 and 630. Between a peak and a valley, you always cross the prime axis. Between a valley and peak, cross the prime axis. Between 2 peaks will be a valley. Between 2 valleys, will be a peak. JC, what would be those 2 values?
The first one's 90, and then the second one is 450.
And if we throw in our y-intercept at 0.4, I should have a natural flow through the y-intercept. If you do this and your y-intercept's way down here, you boost something up. Find your amplitude, period, vertical, horizontal phase shift, and y-intercept. Check those answers with somebody around you. Make sure your amplitude's still positive, even though we have a -4 there. Amplitude is the absolute value of A. Jerry, amplitude, period, vertical phase shift, vertical phase shifts. What's out front? -3. And horizontal phase shift, what's being subtracted here? Now, what's being subtracted? This 30 is. 30 is being subtracted. Y-intercept, what do we have for y-intercept here, Brooklyn? 1. So looking at our graph, let's see, vertical phase shift to -3, amplitude of 4. So I need to be a little bit more bottom heavy here with my graph. Now the period's only 120, so the period's small. Period's small, that means I can stretch out my 30s here. Okay, first thing we draw in, draw on your prime axis. Vertical phase shift, draw on your prime axis. Once again, these cues are not going to change. Bless you. Theta start and our trig function. Theta start value. At 30, trig function sine, we start on the prime axis. Period 120. So take a look at 120 degrees away from 30. Takes us out to 150. Prime axis. Gains the halves. Now we'll hit us the prime axis again. So we have 50 plus 150 plus 30, 180 divided by 2. 90 will be on the prime axis. Now this is where the negative affects our graph. Because we play our halfway point between 30 and 90 is 60. But since we have a negative there, we have SpongeBob opposite day. Sine typically, click, 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 climbs the hill, screams, ah! Down, then back up again. But SpongeBob opposite of that, rather than click, 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 climb the hill, we have to go down first. So our amplitude is a value of 4, so our halfway point is 60, will take us down to -7. Okay, we have to go down first with a negative. Then halfway between 90 and 150 is 120. We'll be at a peak, which is 4 up. Now if we look at our y-intercept at the value of 1, we're up here. Now, if you did this problem in reverse, and you started here and you went up and then down and back up again, this would not naturally flow through your y-intercept. Okay, because you'd hit here and then had to jump back up here. So that would be an indication that you boofed up the graph, that my y-intercept doesn't naturally flow. Homework, page 53, problems 1 to 8. Okay, page 53, 1 to 8. It's basically doing what we're doing here. Okay, in each case, find the amplitude, period, vertical, horizontal phase shift, y-intercept, and get a graph down. Don't worry, we will continue to work on these. Okay. You will continue to get more and more comfortable with what we're doing. Okay? You just have to put some little time into it, a little work into it. And it will get better as you go along here. This tends to be one of the easier, I don't want to say easy for everybody, but it will tend to be one of the better grades because it's a set process each and every time that you have to go through. It doesn't change, you don't have to vary anything, it's a set process. Alright, questions you have? First time is yours, you got about a minute or a second. Have a good day, everybody.